In this video, I'm going to talk about printing in your stationery business, so let's dive in. Hi, I'm Laney. I'm a wedding invitation designer, and I love to teach people how to design wedding invitations and how to create a successful, profitable stationery business. If you're interested in learning that, check out some of the resources in the description of this video. So the most common question I get is, what printer do you use for stationery? It's a hard one to answer because I use a variety of different printers for a lot of different reasons. So let's consider some of the things that are important to take into account when you are trying to print wedding invitations and other types of stationery. So first, I think the most important question is whether you want to be printing in-house or outsourcing. We often look at in-house printing and think that it seems way cheaper because the cost of ink and the cost of paper is typically a lot less than the cost of ordering a print from a print shop. However, there's a lot of differences between those two things as well. So if you are printing in-house, then you're not accounting for things like extras. For instance, if I order 100 prints from my print shop, they're not going to charge me for all the extras it takes to get to 100. Whereas if I print those in-house, I'm gonna have to order about 120 in order to make sure I can get 100 final prints that are ready to send to my client. So I'm not paying for those extras. The second thing is just the finishing capabilities that they have. So anything like cutting, folding, hole drilling, tearing edges, just more specialized printing methods, etc. All those things require additional equipment, and I don't really have the room or the money or the time to invest in getting that equipment and also learning how to use it well. And then the third thing they don't account for is cutting, and this is going to sound, cutting things down, it seems so simple, but it actually can be really complicated when you need to cut 500 pieces for an invitation suite. So especially if you have any designs that bleed off the edge of your paper, then what happens is you need to print them on a larger piece of paper and then cut it down to size. And a lot of printers like this one that you'll see behind me have a lot of trouble printing on really small pieces of paper too. So you would print on maybe 4 up on a larger piece and then cut it down to size. But again, if you don't have that money or the space or the time to invest in how to learn how to use a large machinery cutter, then that's just an added expense that you may have to outsource. For instance, if I ever have to cut a lot of pieces, I usually just take them to FedEx, but that takes time and costs me money. Whereas if I order from a print shop, I'm just ordering everything already cut to size. And then the last most important thing about outsourcing versus doing things in-house is that printing can be kind of a tricky beast. If you've ever tried to use your printer when you're in a rush, it can sense fear. And some printers have a lot of trouble with color adjustments, color matching, etc. So there's a lot of work you have to do in order to get everything printing correctly in the first place. And then you'll have to deal with, jams, replacing toner cartridges, etc. So these are things you just don't have to deal with if you are outsourcing to a print shop. And I'll tell you a couple of my favorite ones in a minute. For this reason, a lot of stationers like me prefer to outsource as much as possible. The only things that I typically print in-house are going to be small sample orders, things like vellum, things like envelopes and handmade paper that are a little bit more difficult to outsource. So I'm going to print a lot of those things in-house, but I'm going to try to outsource as much as possible for the rest of my work. If you prefer to print in-house because you want to really have that hands-on approach to your business, that's completely okay. Or if you really want to become a specialty letterpress printer or something, then that's a wonderful option for a stationery business as well. However, if you prefer to focus on design and pay people to do their own job of printing like I do, then that's also a great option. And I wouldn't let the cost of ink versus the cost of ordering a print from a print shop be your one deciding factor. So make sure you have another reason for wanting to print in-house if you decide to do that pretty exclusively. If you do decide to print in-house, I highly recommend having both a laser printer and an inkjet printer, as they do slightly different things and can print different types of projects, but they work together really well to give you a well-rounded toolkit. So my laser printer is right here. It's an HP Laserjet M452DW. This one is no longer in production, but you can find the newest model, which is a 454DW. It's very similar and can do pretty much all of the same things. The main reason that I got this printer was to do some white ink printing, and I have a video on how that works if you want to check it out. Laser printers are great for smooth surfaces, so metallic papers, certain types of vellum papers, etc. They are faster than inkjet printers, and they often print text a lot crisper. So I really like to print envelopes on this printer because it's pretty fast and they get through really quick, as well as the text on them being very crisp and slightly more water resistant as well than an inkjet printer. One thing that's frustrating about laser printers is because of the way they operate, a lot of these like smaller in-house models that we're going to find can't handle really thick paper. So after about 100 pounds, which is what I typically recommend as the minimum for any standalone invitation card, this printer starts to jam up and has a lot of trouble with any thicker paper than that. My house stock is 120 pounds and I can barely get 1 or 2 pieces to run through this printer successfully. While there are laser printers that can handle thicker papers, you'll find that they are a big step up in the like $5,000, $7,000, $10,000 range. So oftentimes not what people who are watching this video are interested in investing in right now. An inkjet printer, you can't see mine, but she's down there in that little cubby, and she is a Canon Pixma Pro 100. Again, no longer in production, but you can get the Canon Pixma Pro 200, which does basically the same things. Her name is Wanda, and his name is Cosmo from the Fairly Odd Parents. So inkjet printers are great for a lot of different types of projects. They're really good for handmade paper. You can also print certain types of vellum on them. You just have to make sure you get laser or inkjet vellum and use it on the correct printer. You can print envelopes open flap in them. So if you want to print the guest address and the return address on the flap at the same time, you can run it through here. And oftentimes inkjet printers are better with like photos. These are technically like photo printers, and that's kind of what they're designed to be. So they do a really good job with more saturated colors and things sometimes than the laser can. So where the laser does better with text, the inkjet can do better with images. It just kind of depends. I find this laser is pretty good with like the watercolor imagery that I'm using for stationery design. Not so good with photos, but I don't print a lot of those as an invitation designer. The most frustrating parts of the inkjet printer are that it typically runs slower and you often have to replace the ink cartridges more often. It can handle a lot thicker paper than the laser printer can though, so I do really like it if I'm printing any kind of standalone invitation orders. I absolutely love having both of them though, because whenever I have a project that I'm working on, sometimes I think it's going to go really well on the laser and I end up using the inkjet or vice versa. So it's nice to have both to have a variety of options to choose from. Two other printers that a lot of stationery designers like are both from Canon. We have the IP8720 and the IX6820. I'll link all of these models below in the description for you so you can check those out. And then if you do decide to outsource to some print shops, I'm going to share my 3 favorites and I will link them in the description as well. My number 1 favorite printer is PrintsWell Fulfillment. I have a whole playlist about them here on my channel, and they just offer a really wide variety, great pricing, really easy to use ordering system, and you kind of just always know exactly when your packages are going to ship and arrive to you, which I absolutely love. They're very consistent. A second option is called Mingo Press. They are a little bit more hands-on than PrintsWell, and they can do slightly more complicated projects. I've never sent them a project that they've said no to. So if you want a little bit more hand-holding, I definitely recommend them. And then my third is Stationery HQ. They're very similar to PrintsWell. They are based in California though, so if you're on the West Coast, you might get your orders faster if you work with them, and I have a couple videos about using them here on my channel as well. They carry a lot of stationery products, but also some additional like gifting products or extended product lines like signage, mugs, notebooks, things like that, that PrintsWell doesn't carry because they focus specifically on kind of paper stationery. So 3 really good, well-rounded options that I think a lot of beginning designers would really love to work with. Pricing very similar between all 3 of those, and I would recommend trying a couple of them out and seeing which one you like the best. I really work with PrintsWell a lot, and I am an affiliate with them. So if you use my link in the description or tell them that Laney sent you when you set up your account, you'll get $25 off your first order. If you want to get into more like specialty printing, I have some videos on gold foil printing and letterpress printing that you can check out as well. I don't want to get too crazy in this particular one, but in general, printing, it's like designing something beautiful is one thing, but making it actually look like it's supposed to on the page is an entirely different beast altogether. And this is why printing is its own job in addition to designing being its own job. So I highly recommend if you're just starting out, make sure you print some of your sample suites. Most of the printers that I recommended for you here have minimums as low as 10 quantity. So yes, it will be a little bit of an investment, but overall it's going to be worth it because it will teach you so much about how colors and designs and text and everything converts from the screen to the page. And I think some of the things you learn might surprise you. So if you have any questions about printing in your stationery business, definitely let me know. I linked all the printers that I mentioned and print shops that I mentioned in the description of this video. And I hope you'll stick around and watch some of our other stationery videos. If you're interested in starting a stationery business, I have tons of resources and courses that you can take that I will also link in the description for you. Thanks, everyone.